Oh, all right. I think we're live. All right. Hey, everybody. Absurd here. So, I know it's Monday, and I don't normally film these on Mondays. I missed an episode like 2 weeks ago for Friday, and this is me making up for it. Yeah. Uh, so, as I've mentioned before, I have a another dog. Uh, there's Aaron, and there was Cookie, but Cookie was my roommate's dog. And then when Cookie left, I decided to get Santos, uh, so that Aaron wouldn't be alone. Aaron, of course, is my service animal. She's my friend, and dealing with Santos is a completely different experience than dealing with Aaron. Uh, Aaron was simply abandoned to me. So she was going to be abandoned. She came directly to me. Santos was from a shelter. So he had already been abandoned, and then the shelter, I think, had no, yeah, he was donated to the shelter. His mother and siblings were all adopted separately from him. So he's about 5 months, and things are scary. Lots of things are scary to him, and he's making adjustments. He's learning. You know, he's quick to approach other dogs. Like he approaches them. It's like really dope. He doesn't approach humans, but he doesn't immediately flee anymore. So he's learning about his environment. Watching the interactions with him and the interactions I see with other people, I'm starting to notice that there's a huge difference between control and influence. So because Santos was full of fear, it's not easy to teach someone through fear. Erin, she was scared because the people she was with, left, and then she has this new person. But I always showed her attention and affection, and she was, she saw herself given to me. Like she saw them bring her here, she saw them leave. So it was easier to teach her verbal commands. Um, with Santos, because he's afraid, and he's afraid to approach. It's not really easy to teach him verbal commands. I have to do it extremely slowly. Like when I teach him the come command, I couldn't just do that right out the gate. I had to wait a while, take him on some one-on-one walks, and during those one-on-one walks is when I could take the time to teach him. The point being that while I'm teaching him, I cannot control him. I can only influence him in the same way that Erin doesn't try to control him. She simply influences him. Um, when I use the come command on her, they both come because he simply sees her come to me. If I use the come command on him, that's when I have to, coax him into it. It's like, hey, hey, how you doing? I don't want to actually do the actions because Erin is extremely excitable, and I taught her the same way. And so if I do that, she's gonna come running and But the difference between control and influence. I just realized how do I share this if they didn't give me a link? It's interesting. I'll figure that out a little later. A lot of people I have noticed, and I'm 100% sure I used to. In fact, one of the reasons that I noticed this is because I used to do it. That is one of the reasons I'm like, hey, this is that. I remember that. It's using control and attempting to use like logic, or using control instead of influence. It's control is an aspect of authority. Authority is having the ability to determine meanings, outcomes, and sequence of events. The way that authority determines meanings, outcomes, and sequence of events is through control. So control is the enforcer. It's the thing that sets limits, responds to the rules. Rules are designed to help control. Control utilizes rules. Some people give themselves rules, and they give rules to others. They might not be aware that they're given these rules, but this is how their actions are being produced. So it's like seeing an action and then reverse engineering it through replication. Like, oh, I know how to do that action if I, use control. Boom. So they tell themselves, they utilize agreements with themselves to tell themselves, it is okay if I do this because. Because could be anything. Because I'm good, because it was done to me, because this is fair, because this is right. Because can be anything. It's okay if I do this because. To use justification. And then with others, it is not okay if they do this because. Once again, because can be anything. Because they're bad, because they're not me, because they're different, because they don't deserve it, because they deserve to be punished. I can do this, they cannot do this. It's deciding what can and cannot happen. It's setting limits. So they set these limits inside of the agreement that they make with themselves or the group. So because they agree to it, they think it's right, and that's the limit. Control will be trying to force those limits on others and forcing others to respond and respect those limits. Let's call them boundaries. So they make these boundaries and they force other people to live within their boundaries. Say, hey, I don't think this should be the way, do this. So they're forcing others to acknowledge their beliefs, their feelings, their thoughts, and typically to respond to them. So they're forcing them into their inner story, forcing inner story out onto others and to reality itself. Influence would be, well I'm going to dwell on control just a little more before I dwell on influence, because this is live, but it's also video, so you can like just go back, or I can just go back and read it. It's easier to just keep things organized rather than just start jumping all over the place and getting lost in the sauce. All right, so control necessarily needs to utilize aggression. That's the way that it can get things in there, because typically there's going to be some resistance, especially if the other one is using, a different set of beliefs, which in terms of humans, yeah. Most humans are utilizing a different set of beliefs, one unique to themselves. So there's going to be resistance. So at a certain point, these two things are trying to control the context and the opposition. They just want to control more. It's like a consumption mindset. I need to consume this energy. I need this. In this particular instance, I need this control. I need to control this. So there's resistance from both. Typically, one is able to dominate the other, and the other must become submissive and subservient. Different ways that can happen. I'm not going to dwell into that. All of which utilize aggression. Aggression, which is utilizes competition to function. It's, attempting to dominate another, to make another, to put another beneath. It's a means to determine order and to secure order and position. It means to secure position, competition, and aggression. Of course, when combined with narcissism, it's to put oneself on top. I deserve to be on top. I deserve to win. So that's a bit about how narcissism, aggression, competition are gonna always be linked. They're gonna best buddies. And then okay, I see how that leads to greed, because it's a consumer mindset. So in order to consume, it has to compete. In order to compete, it has to aggress. And in order to want to compete, so in order to consume, it has to be narcissistic. Wow, holy shit. In order to consume, this thing has to be narcissistic. This thing can't tell the difference between like consuming to survive and consuming through desire. Oh, that's what that means. It can't tell the difference, but okay. Yeah. So this thing that I'm describing, it's how viral parasitic organisms think. It's how perspective works. It's how perception works, not perspective. Perspective is a temporal spatial, temporal spatial location on a meta scale. Because like size is a factor, but size is a different space. So temporal spatial location is perception. It's perspective. Perception is the thought process of a parasite. And the way that perception works is perception cannot tell the difference between survival and desire. So it tends to think, because it thinks that it's right, anything it desires must be necessary for survival. Otherwise, it's wrong. And being wrong is bad, and starts to spill into a whole other bit. But because it's afraid to be wrong, anytime the opportunity to be wrong approaches, the best way I can describe that bit right there. Anytime they feel wrong, or anytime reality shows them that they're wrong. So anytime they feel wrong, and anytime reality shows them that they're wrong, they experience frustration, cognitive dissonance, and aggression. And through control, the energy is like if honesty is the individual will and effort to recognize and be in sync with truth and reality, like honesty is that energy. Frustration would be the energy that's powering aggression. Yeah, I saw frustration. So frustration is powering aggression. Holy shit, my bad, guys. So like, as I'm saying this, I'm simply remembering something that I saw. I'm thinking about it in real time, but I'm also thinking through a memory. And at the time, I was myself was receiving a lot of that frustration, and in efforts to block it out, um, I of course had to block out information. But just because I blocked it out didn't mean that it didn't happen. So because it happened, I can travel back and like pull it up on a big screen. Sitting there looking at my past. So okay, this is a completely different, but the way that I learned about that ability to look like pull up the past and to examine it from like different angles is when I had my spiritual awakening. Uh, One of the transformations that had to occur are like one of the visions God gave me. God forced me back, and I got to relive each moment in which I was behaving aggressive with women. In this particular case, it was specifically women. It wasn't people. It was just all women and my aggressive behavior. And this when I was sexually aggressive, it was very particular type of aggression usage that or image that I noticed. But it was every time I was sexually aggressive with women, and it just I got to relive it from like the woman's point of view. It's like and even though it was aimed towards sex, it was still aggression. It was still aggression, and that gave me like the blueprint of how aggression functions. Like frustration is the energy powering aggression. Because each time I was aggressive, it was because I was frustrated, because I desired something and it didn't look like I was going to get what I desired. At times, like what I desired wasn't always sex. I'll be perfectly clear here. Um, I was just using like that form of aggression as a weapon. That was just a weapon that I decided to use, like how I shaped my aggression. Um, yeah, because yeah, I'm not about to go into that. I'm at a very particular point, and I want to focus on this line right here. So the aggression, the frustration. In order to dispel the frustration, need a way to release it. One of the ways to release frustration is the production of dopamine. Um, Ways to produce dopamine are winning. Winning produces dopamine. So, if you create if you create a game, you create a competition. You create the rules for that competition, and you set the rules so that you can win. So, as long as you're winning, and the prize of this is the loser gets frustrated. The loser gets frustrated. The loser has to get angry or hurt. At a certain point, you don't really care what happens to the loser. You just want to get all this anger and frustration out of you. Eat whatever bits of happiness they have. Like, man, this person's kind of happy. Let me eat that. Let me eat that energy, and then you use that energy to produce dopamine for yourself. I'm not sure if that's all how it works. It's just that's what I see happening. Like when I'm thinking about it, when I'm visualizing it, that's what I see happening. I see one person's, being filled with anger, frustration, hindering the production of their dopamine, and one person transferring their anger and frustration, causing them to increase their production of dopamine. And then on a spiritual level, it's like, oh, consuming their spirit or their energy, consuming their energy. As harboring anger and frustration is exhausting. It's really stressful. It puts a strain on the system. Parasitism puts a strain on the system. Oh man. Whew. All right. I'm back to earth. I'm back. Savvy again. All right. That's the stream. Gonna be short. No. I gotta go back in there, don't I? I gotta go back in there. All right. Let me go grab some water as I, try to restore a bit of energy so I can go back in there and talk about influence. Good quality water. All right. So to sum up the first part, man, I'm losing kilobytes. Control is an aspect of authority. Utilizes rules, narcissism, competition, and aggression. And authority, of course, is the ability to determine meaning, outcomes, and sequence of events. And control is essentially, forcing aggression into another. It's an aspect of parasitism. It's how diseases interact with the body. All right. Monica! Hey chica, ¿cómo está? Oh, Namaste. Or is it namaste? Namaste. Oh, all right. So the second part of this was influence, the difference between control and influence. So that was basically the way that I see control operating on a very mechanical level, in terms of how it tends to influence attitudes, outlooks, and behaviors. Influence. Influence is simply an observable event. It's like you interact with others in an observable way, rather than trying to control and dictate. It's like, you want to get something to eat because you're hungry. Hey yo, let's go get something to eat. Control. It's a very subtle way. It's not like, nothing I'm saying involves good or bad. I'm just describing things as I see them. So nothing is good or bad. Like, there's no right, there's no wrong in how I'm seeing these things. I'm seeing them without that lens. So, hey yo, let's go grab something to eat. That's using control. Hey, you know what? I'm hungry. I'm gonna get something to eat. That will be influence. That's, in something observable. It's like, even the words themselves are influential. Hey, I'm gonna get something to eat. Do you want to come? Because it helps influence their decision rather than try to control and dictate what this decision should be. I'll use Santos. If I tell him come, that's an attempt to control. When I tell Aaron to come, That's me attempting to control her, and she understands how to respond to that. In fact, she doesn't always do it. Like, just because I tell her to come doesn't mean she does. Especially if she's like caught up in a really interesting smell. Um, but when I start walking, when I say let's go, and then I start walking, that's the influence. Like, she sees me walking, she's like, okay, uh, I see why So she gets to come on command, and she sees me walking. So she's like, all right. So she'll smell real fast, and then run up and not even come to me, but just start walking with me, and while she doing her thing. So she doesn't even like always catch up to me. She just go from back there to the next tree or to the next bush, or she'll walk a little ahead of me. So I use control as a means of influence, but the control isn't real because unless she's like on a leash, I can't physically control her if she's way over there. Yeah, I would strictly be influence. Um, let's take people. The the way that I have noticed influence in people is they observe something, whether it's honesty, whether it's frustration, whether it's posturing, whether it's bravado, whether it's bravery. They observe something and they attempt to reverse engineer in terms of humans. I don't fully understand how influence works on animals because I don't know how they see things. Uh, I just see their interaction with my actions. But humans, I got that one. So being reverse engineered, um, sometimes people hate trying to reverse engineer things themselves, so they prefer to just be told how to do it. They they look towards authority, since authority tells how things are, uh, what things mean, and how things should be. Hmm. I see. Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Oh no, no, it's just a simple Trinity, and that's because it's just made up of three. Oh, right, because intelligence corresponds to numbers. Huh. Okay. All right. That's a different thing. So earlier, I was talking about how humans are interacting with each other through these little identities. Everyone's playing their own game. They're each controlling their identity, or ha- having these identities control the body. Like the bodies are like the mech suits. It's like we're these identities. Well, we're inside these identities. Uh, we're in like it's like a human inside of an identity controlling a flesh suit. Mm. You know what it's like? It's being in a simulation or like a VR. Um, as you're in VR, you're wearing this mech suit. So this, and then you're inside this mech suit with the virtual image being projected onto you. So if you tell the mech suit to move arm, so if you move your arm, like if you think about moving your arm, or you're in the mech suit, so if you move your arm, the mech suit moves his arms. But because you're actually in a suit, even though what you're observing with and what you think you're interacting with is a projection, but you are interacting with real objects, like a green room, you know, um, and there's a square box. There's you know chair shaped objects. There's a circular shaped object, and then there are these living forms. these like rectangles and squares, and they're covered over with green screen. So yeah, why am I using all this weird language? All right, imagine you're in an actual fucking room, right? The room got two dogs, two monitors, uh, three tables, a couch, chairs, and a cage, right? So all of that shit is being covered with green screen. So you put on the suit, you walk into that room, and then whatever image the green screen is on the green screen is portrayed in the room. So there could be an image where like the two dogs are being portrayed as two cats, and so instead of being two screens, it's you're in a house. There are two windows with window sills. Um, there are a few potted plants around. Um, there's a hammock. Um, some a tray of coconuts and two cats. It's like that's what's being projected. So as you go to interact with the window and the windowsill, you're interacting with the monitor. Like in real life, you're interacting with the monitor, and the image you're interacting with the windowsill. So it's like that, where you're interacting with real stuff, but you see it as a projection. Like you see it as the VR. Because VR is being laid on top of something. It's not just random light. It's like solid VR. Mm. Solid light. That's funny. Solid light. Oh man, that's funny. So yeah, it's like imagine interacting with solid light, but so instead of interacting with solid light, it's like actual objects, so something like that, something like that. I'm completely losing my train of thought. I'm caught up with the cuddles from Aaron, and it's causing like a sensory overload. Because of the sensory overload, I can't stay there. Um, every time, like I, going over there already causes sensory overload, and whenever my body's experiencing too many chemicals, I gotta come back. Otherwise, I don't know. I can, I can get. I've been injured there before, and trying my best to treat this body right. So I can't do things to kill it too early. It'll die whenever it's time to. All right, Monica, thanks for stopping by. I'm gonna see if I can talk to you before I gotta get dressed and all that stuff. Right, real quick, if you're still listening. Anybody else? Yo, find me on Facebook. My name is Absird Charles. Find me on YouTube. It's youtube.com/absurd. Instagram, Absird1. ABSIRD. All right, y'all. Audi. Audi 5.